Our next email comes from Big Tony Style.
Big Tony Style.
He says, it looks like VR is going to drum up a lot of interest in 2016. What are some older games you would like to see reimagined for a VR experience?
Metroid Prime.
So, yeah.
Oh, the most overrated Nintendo game of all time.
Get out.
But I can't. We still have show. Finnegan will yell at me if I leave. David will be disappointed.
Pong.
Older Pong. I mean, I could see ping pong working in.
No, you want to know what? You know what I would love to see? Not even joking. Is Myst. I would love to see a VR.
This would be cool.
A fully 3D realized version of that world.
Some people in the office are playing The Witness. I hope that's okay to say. I said it. I'll bleep it out if I have to. But I want a game like that is very Myst-ish and it's recent, and I wonder if it could be fitted into VR.
Yeah, I mean Portal 2.
Portal.
Yeah, I mean I played a Portal VR demo on Vive, and it was like a thing made just for it. It was sort of an experience thing, but it was awesome.
People will figure out eventually in long term first-person shooters in VR. I mean, Valkyrie, like there's already some games kind of doing it, but in the meantime, while we're really sort of figuring out what works and doesn't work, stuff that doesn't really require that twitch, you have to make a decision or do something right this second, like where you can just kind of look around and ponder the environment, like a Portal Myst style game would be really great.
And also, like even for shooters though, like it's a matter of them. So the way you think of VR is, I think in the ideal sense, is not that it replaces the right analog stick, but that it's like there's moving with the left, there's
you can do something new with
shooting,
the right analog stick.
Right, exactly. There's shooting with, but I would say that maybe there's aiming with the right, and then then the VR is just looking, and that can work if you design it the right way.
See,
like
that's so important. You just touched on something that I don't think people that if you haven't played VR, I don't think people understand. Is VR lets you divorce aiming from looking.
Right, yeah.
Which you've never been able to do. Like normally you look to the right, so you aim to the right, and now you can be looking over here and shooting over there, and like that opens up a whole new design space that I don't think a lot of people really appreciate or understand.
Until you get it in your hands, you don't
the big thing is like Eve Valkyrie is the one where like you can look up around behind you to like see what's going on over there, and then that doesn't change what you're firing at or anything like that.
I was playing a Drive Club demo at PSX. I was playing a Drive Club demo, and I'm not the hugest fan of Drive Club's like racing mechanics, but what I thought was amazing is I never like to race in racing games. I never play from the cockpit, even though it's immersive and it looks cool. It cuts off so much of my situational awareness. But when I was playing it in VR, I stayed in the cockpit mode because if I wasn't sure how, I'm like, how sharp is this turn? I don't want to look at my mini map. I want a sense of it. So I'm making a sharp, like, almost hairpin right turn. And I'm turning the wheel and I'm looking into the turn the whole time. And I'm like, yeah, I got a little more to go, a little more to go, a little more to go. Okay, I'm there. And that's like, you can't do that without VR. But not to get sidetracked, my original point was that I've played kind of like a version of Half-Life 2 that was kind of
Kluge VR.
Yeah, exactly. And I did that on Oculus, and you could tell the game wasn't originally designed that way. But I feel like even based on that, what the main thing there is like rendering more of an arm and a hand, so that if I'm looking this way while I'm shooting that way, the arm and stuff, that all looks right. But other than that, it was totally functional. It didn't disrupt my ability to play a first-person shooter in that sense at all. And that just Half-Life 2 happens to have this amazing world that's really great to experience in that way. So it can totally be figured out.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Metroid Prime, because Nintendo's been very quiet on VR.
Oh,
I feel like they haven't really addressed it at all.
Yeah, completely absentee.
But I wonder about something like Mario 64.
Yeah.
Like a 3D platformer, like that.
I think everyone always immediately goes to first-person games, and I think third-person games.
Because we know that there are 3D platformers coming.
Yeah, Lucky's Tale is launching. It comes bundled with Oculus, which is a 3D platform.
A 3D Mario platformer? I mean,
I think I could absolutely see playing through Mario 64 or Sunshine or even Galaxy in that, where your head is sort of the camera. Your vision is the camera, and one of the coolest things about VR to me is being able to sort of like. When I was playing the Vive, the world sort of becomes a diorama, And like there was one where I'm standing up and looking down at something, and it's like you have a god's eye view of it. But if you like get down on the floor, like you're right down there with it. And so I'm thinking of stuff like SimCity, to where like you build a city, and you're viewing it from a tactical, the strategic simulation from up top, and then you sort of just like lay down on your carpet, and you're like in the city. You're like looking at stuff and looking at what's happening to people. And I think it's really cool. And I played Rez on PSVR, and that worked perfectly. Like I want to see stuff like weird stuff. Like I want to see like what a Parappa the Rapper game looks like in VR, or like Katamari Damacy.
So something occurred to me today that I hadn't thought of before. Card games like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering in VR.
Yeah.
I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think it'd be amazing.
So in Hearthstone, maybe you're sitting at the table in the tavern.
Yeah.
There's all these like Warcraft characters around you, like cheering you on.
You almost hear like the din of the bar around you.
Exactly. Or Magic the Gathering, like you're like lands and your cards are representative of things. But what if instead of like playing cards, you're like actually like the more like for the land cards that you have, you're like the trees are being increased around you, and like you're actually seeing like the creatures that you're summoning up in front of you.
Like a version of like Star Wars chess on steroids.
But you're like in it. You're not watching it from up here. You're inside.
That'd be awesome.
You can see your opponent across the field. Oh my god, it sounds
honestly, I think first-person things are the tip of the iceberg for VR.
I do think there's the most upside there. Like Super Mario 64 in VR would be really cool, but I don't think it's that different than just being super close to your television, except the motion tracking. That's why I think first person, like the racing, like I feel like it changes the way a racing game is experienced in a way that I don't think it does for third person stuff. But I still think that I think you're right about SimCity and card games and a lot of that other stuff. There is a lot of upside in a lot of different genres for sure.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah.
Tetris.
So
I was thinking Tetris.
The blocks are just coming.
So no, I played it.
What? VR Tetris?
Super Hypercube?
Super Hypercube. I didn't get a chance to write the piece I wanted to write about it after PSX because other things kind of took me away from it. But I could not. They had to pry me away from Polytron's. Like literally, so Polytron's new VR game, Super Hypercube. Yeah, they had to pull me away from it. And so what it is, I want to tell you about this real quick. So. Think about the 30 seconds of fun that is, or that's not even, it's like 2 seconds of fun is Tetris, right? Where you get a new block, and then you figure out where that block goes and you drop it. That's the 2 seconds of fun of Tetris, and you get this good feeling of, I put the right thing in the right place. Yeah. Awesome, I feel good. So they take that, and basically you've got the cube is in front of you, and it starts as just a square, and there's a wall that you're coming up towards that has a gap in it that is a certain shape, and you have to rotate this polygonal shape to fit that profile to make it through. So it starts, you're just putting a square through a square, nice and easy. But then every time you go through a peg, something gets added on to that. So now it becomes a tetrad, or it becomes all these other elaborate shapes. You have to find the way to rotate it. The trick about it from the VR perspective is that the thing eventually becomes big enough that you can't see the wall and the hole that's in it. So you end up looking around the shape, or having to rotate the shape so you can see it.
Weird. It's almost like those Japanese game shows where like you have to like conform your body because that wall is moving towards you.
Yeah, I mean, I just like the idea that starts as something that you could do in non-VR. Like you could rotate a shape with, but you need that VR element to eventually look around the thing that's obscuring your view and get your body involved in a way that feels natural and not tacked on.
And they just, they nail the feel of it. Every time you drop one of those blocks through perfectly, it just gives you this very tactile feel. And they even, another nice little touch is they go so far as to render the controller, the PS4 controller, in a weird like Tron-like wireframe in the game, and the PS camera tracks the light bar for it, so you see like a kind of a techno light wave version of your controller in the game space as you're manipulating it. So it's pretty neat.
VR is going to be so cool.
It is going to be really cool. I'm excited.
It is definitely exciting.